Welcome, everybody, and good afternoon, good evening to all of you. And we've got a very special guest tonight, Jerome Foster, who is part of the youth movement. And we are really excited to have some partnerships with youth organizations, especially climate-related youth organizations. And I'm going to introduce you to Francis Stewart, who will introduce our guest speaker for tonight. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A, type them in as we go, and then afterwards we'll be able to get your questions answered. And if there's email, web addresses, we'll put them in the chat box for you. So over to you, Francis.
Hi, I'm really excited to be able to introduce Jerome Foster II tonight. It seems like a long time ago, last summer, the 0 Hour March in Washington, ECA had several people there in the rain, and that's when I first encountered Jerome. He was very, very active in getting that 0 Hour movement launched and that march going. Then a few months later, from the Supreme Court, you may have heard of the Juliana case, Juliana versus United States, with a number of young plaintiffs filing suit against the federal government for not protecting their right to a safe and livable climate. And Jerome gave a terrific speech there. Got a chance to actually meet him at the Citizens Climate Lobby conference last month when he was talking about how youth and older people need to work together in the climate action arena to really resolve this crisis. And he's doing a lot to resolve this crisis. It's very impressive for someone who's a high school junior to already have founded something like the Climate Reporter, which is doing a lot of media work on climate change and getting people to know much more about what's going on with that. But beyond that, he's done a lot of work. It's taken a trip with National Geographic and done virtual reality filming in Iceland. He's currently working with the Obama Presidential Center as a youth liaison to promote how the center is going to be carbon neutral. He's going to, this summer, be attending Harvard for 2 months to learn an in-depth understanding of climate science. And also through the Climate Reporter this summer, he's going to be taking a trip to China to research how the country is transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a renewable energy economy, which is, I think, truly amazing at 16, would be amazing at probably at any age. So I'm really looking forward to what Jerome has to share with us about the youth climate movement and how we can support that. So I'm turning it over to you, Jerome.
Thank you, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It is just an honor to be around this intergenerational audience because I'm always around young people, and I feel like it is essential for young people to be around intergenerational crowds because you guys have like mentored us and you guys have like taught us what activism is and have taught us how to actually be disobedient in society and to how to make change. And I feel like we're just like following you guys' footsteps. So yeah, so I really am pushing for unity. That's the biggest thing that I push for, is that young people like me, we always feel like, hey, we know so much, and we're always like have that attitude, and like we are just really rebellious to like anyone else's advice. But I feel like what has happened over the beginning of 2019, the end of 2018, is that especially with 0 Hour, they have incorporated 5 new adult mentors to teach them. And with the Climate Reporter, we have a whole new board of elders that basically tell us, that like advise us on how to be a credible news organization. And with Our Children's Trust, they're integrated with intergenerational practices. So I feel like in 2019, we're gonna see a lot more intergenerational work, which will definitely amplify our impact and amplify our movement. And definitely with the 0 Hour March that happened last year, I feel like that was a huge shift in how in the mainstream view of climate change, and also with Greta Thunberg. And Greta Thunberg, if you don't know, her parents literally like groomed her and taught her how to actually go about it. And she had conversations with her parents back and forth and with her grandparents also to basically talk to them about how it is best to basically go to the government asking for change. And it was from her grandmother, who was actually an activist for women's rights in Sweden, who actually taught her about how to actually go to the parliament and put up the signs. And I feel like a lot of people don't know that, but like literally we're just like following you guys' footsteps. And yes, it's an honor to be here. And I feel also with talking about how youth and about this unity that we're creating, the biggest thing that youth movements are doing now with this intergenerational unity, we're also talking about combining these different movements. Like our Children's Trust has been working cohesively with Zero Hour to have the lawsuit and Zero Hour to make sure that climate change is covered in the news a lot more. And with the Climate Reporter, we already have extremely good relationships with organizations like NBC, ABC, and these big media outlets. And we're going to see a big shift in how climate change is reported on in the news. And the National Observer, Time Magazine put out an article saying that 2019 will be the year of the Climate Reporter and will be the year of climate change journalism. And we'll see a huge shift in how the world views climate change and climate refugees and all of these different disasters. And that is just like a big shift that we're going to see in 2019, and especially from social media, which will push that into mainstream. Another thing that I want to talk about is that if we compare this movement, I feel like everyone's like, oh, this youth movement is so new. Normally youth aren't engaged in activism, and I just want to connect it back to different movements, such as the early parts of the environmental movement and the early parts of the civil rights movement and the early parts of I can't recall, but it was another movement I was thinking of that youth basically came out, and eventually once the adults came in and said, hey, we want to start this movement, youth came in and said, hey, this is actually important to me too. I want to join you all. And with the energy that we have, I feel like the youth just have so much energy. We're just willing to do anything. We're willing to protest. We want to do just so many things. And I feel like the biggest shift that's happening is that the environmental movement is seeing that we're having a lot more energy gained to the movement, and adults are also stepping in and saying, hey, let's slow down a little bit. I know you guys are like super hyper and super energetic, but the adults, I feel like you guys are going in and you guys are telling us how to actually meet with them properly and to be professional. We can yell all in the streets if we want to, but I feel like that doesn't make as much change as it could be if the adults were basically going behind us and meeting with these officials, or meeting with the officials with us and saying, hey, we're the adults part of this movement, and we want to meet with you on behalf of the youth and on behalf of all these different people to get tangible change. And that's what I feel like the role of this intergenerational movement is going towards. And that is just how I view the future. Another thing that I want to talk about is an upcoming march that's happening in July. It's a big Miami march that's having all the youth activists basically come together in Miami and unite and basically talk about climate action. And I just wanted to invite you all to that, and just let you know that it will be happening. It's via Zero Hour and the Climate Reporter and Our Children's Trust, and all these different youth climate organizations are coming together in Miami to talk about how they can better act for to better our climate in 2019 and 2020. So that's one of the biggest big thing that's happening in July. It is happening in later July, around July 12th to the 15th, same time as the Zero Hour original march. And also with the Green New Deal, especially with it may seem so radical in how we're shifting like politically, and how Ocasio-Cortez being a democratic socialist is alarming to so many people about that tagline. People are afraid that, hey, is climate change going to change based off of that extreme polarization? Is climate change now going to be viewed as something very extreme? And I feel like what the youth are doing, and especially Sunrise Movement is doing, is that youth environmental movements are coming in and saying, hey, climate change is not a polarizing thing, and especially with Citizen Climate Lobby. they always stress bipartisanship. And even though Democrats are primarily championing climate activism, also we're saying that actual movements and organizations are strategizing to be bipartisan so it can get the most support. Does anyone have any questions so far?
If anybody has questions, you can put your questions in the Q&A box, and then we can field those as they come. And so we do have a question for you, Jerome, that's come in, and it says, "Hi, I'm 75 years old, and in my opinion, the most important thing that elders my age can do to remedy climate change is to give support to the youth. They are the people who will suffer the chaotic change that will come up upon the globe during the last half of the century. They are also the people with drive, energy, and focus to do the most to help us all contain climate change. My question is, how can we elders best support the youth in their struggle?"
That's a very good question. I would say that the best way that we can have people of older age come in and help mentor the youth is through basically reaching out to us via email, or reaching out to us, mailing us, or any way you can, contacting us and saying, "Hey, I believe that if you approach this problem, say we're talking about how we can strategize to make sure the Green New Deal passes. We definitely need people that are across generations to help us." And I feel like that if you email these different organizations like Sunrise Movement, if you email them and say, "Hey, I am 75 years old and I want to mentor you all to better strategize and implement the Green New Deal." And I feel like they're extremely receptive to basically help advice from all people, because they're looking to basically make sure that their actions are effective and they are precise. And it's definitely something that we're looking for. In the past, I would say that the youth movement has been very radical and said, "Hey, we're just here. We're trying to change everything, trying to change society and change climate change." But I feel like now, since we have established ourselves for a year or so, we are now understanding the reality that we do need advice from you all. And just always feel free to reach out, email, mailing us, anything that we're always looking for advice. And also I would say that being that you guys have been around on the earth a lot longer than we are, and you guys have literally learned so much from the years that you've been on the earth, just telling us about how your life has been, and telling us how say you've gone through the same experience. Say there was a Green New Deal in this, and back before we were even alive. That would, if you guys could tell us about your past experiences and how that relates to how today, how we can best make steps for the future and today. I feel like that is extremely valuable, because we don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again, and we're not making progress. And I feel like if you guys tell us that advice, that would be extremely beneficial.
So Jerome, we have a couple of questions if you'd like to answer them now, or would you like to wait until the end?
Well, we can answer them now, yes.
Okay, so we have a question about the interaction between the youth, I'm sure you were expecting this one, between the youth in San Francisco and Senator Feinstein. What are your thoughts on that whole interchange?
So I did see the video. I saw the video. I would say I haven't researched enough about Senator Feinstein, and I don't know much about her, so I can't make concrete conclusions about it. But I feel that the interaction overall between her and the young students was not pretty. It wasn't beneficial to basically making sure the Green New Deal is seen as in a good light, but she was more combative than helpful to them, because they were not too. Yeah, I can't really talk too much about that because I don't know too much about her.
Okay, thank you. There's somebody who would like to know a little more about the climate strike on March 15th. you familiar with
Yes.
that? They'll walk out? Okay.
Yes. So you want to know more information about it?
Mhm.
Definitely. Okay. So the U.S. climate strike is a part of a larger global movement where Greta Thunberg from Sweden started, and she basically made a wave where each time zone has a different day. Where it started in Sweden about a couple weeks ago, where they all striked, and about tens of thousands of students striked. And now, right now, we're in the tail end of London and Western Europe striking. And right now, on March 15th, will be when United States youth will basically leave school for that day and go to their state capital or go to their state building to basically with signs and chants and just protesting and meeting with elected officials to talk about how they can better make action. And it was the leaders of the U.S. March are well, the people that basically like started and are helping to facilitate it are co-founder of Zero Hour, Nadia Nazar, the recently elected first Muslim Congresswoman Ilhan Ohar, Ilhan Omar. Her daughter is also working with us, and myself, I'm working to do the East Coast marches, and I'm basically working just for the social media and also with making sure they're meeting with proper elected officials and not just a symbolic act. And also another student is Jamie Margolin.
Great, thank you. Can you keep us apprised of the ways that elders might be able to support that strike and support you all? We can't walk out of school, and many of us are, some of us are working, but some of us are retired, so we can't walk out of that. But we would like to be able to support the concept. So if you can, not necessarily now, but keep us in tune to ways that elders could participate in that in a supportive way.
Definitely. If you all can send me an email, well, I can send you all an email connecting you and basically breaking down how you guys can best be interacting. I feel like we have a big network of youth right now, and we're all organizing, and I can definitely tell them and say, hey, we're looking to have intergenerational work and not just be a youth climate strike, but just a climate strike. And I can definitely I'll ask and see how we can best integrate that, and I'll get back to you all as soon as possible. Thank you.
We have another question that I would love to hear your response to. And that is, have you ever run into or heard stories from your peers about well-meaning adults who accidentally come across as condescending or patronizing? And what are some of the things that we can watch out for and try to avoid?
So if I can understand your question, you're saying when youth are interacting with adults that don't believe in climate change, how do we react?
Or how do you come across, or how do you react to somebody who might not be treating you right when you're interacting with them? Somebody who might be kind of condescending or
okay,
being aggressive towards you in your communications.
So I would say that what we do is we actually have trainings where we actually we have like conference calls to basically talk about that, and we make sure that we teach them, and we also make sure that we don't always say climate change when we first meet them. The first thing that we do is we ask them why don't they believe in climatic changes that are happening around the world. And I say, describe something that you've seen has changed in your environment that was different 5 or 10 years ago or 2 years ago. And like no bees or no pigeons, like you can say that was something different. And I say like once they identify that change, you can then state that that change is a part of a larger change that's happening globally to the extinction of bees, the extinction of animals, the there's so many different climatic devastating changes. I feel like once they identify with one change, they're able to adopt the idea that that's not just one change that's happening, but it's a part of a larger system. And after they understand that there's a larger system at play that they might not understand at the local level, then you understand and you teach them about how that change happened. You don't even say climate change then. You don't say that large system is climate change. I just say that that I tell them about how that changed and how that scientifically factually changed. And then I say that scientific change is called climate change. And then after they understand the basis of climate change, then they see like a paradigm shift, because most people that don't understand climate change, they view a polar bear on an ice cap, and that's all they see and that's all they know about. And they feel like anything deviating from that is not climate change. That's how I'll tackle that situation.
Thank you. That was a great answer. We have another question. For advancement of the movement, it's important to understand climate science and renewable energy engineering. Are there some of the youth members focusing on technical issues? This is an area where elders can mentor. And I can tell you just from ECA, we have some members who are very active, who have spent they're scientists, and they've spent their careers on issues relating to energy, engineering, and climate change. So they're very, very knowledgeable. And is that some area where the youth are focusing so that they can really have a grasp on that and would like some mentoring or some communication?
So I would say that the large youth movement isn't very technical, but myself, I am basically the person that's trying to make sure that they're the most technical. And I always push for when we're in conference calls, when everyone's talking about the non-technical and more like emotional aspect about like the hard fact. And I feel like that is like my role in the climate movement, is being technical and just always encouraging us to be more factual. And with my, like, that is why I have like my internship with Congressman John Lewis, is to learn from him and to learn about the technical aspects of nonviolence and how to be an activist, and also the technical aspect of going to Harvard and learning international environmental governance, policy, and social justice, and learning about how social justice basically helps to formulate policy, and how policy can help change how government works for its people. And especially with technology, we're seeing that with the fall in prices of solar energy, we're seeing that is something that is definitely going to be a market influence and can also help to incentivize people to adopt green energy. And I feel like once we understand that as a movement, that it's not just a fight morally, but it's also a fight economically to actually get the most bipartisan support, we have to say that for everyone to understand it, like how America sees most issues in the economic standpoint, we have to frame climate change as an economic problem at its core, and then say state that climate change is a moral issue on top of that. And especially with the class I'm taking right now with MIT called climate science, I'm learning it is, most people take it around like the third year at MIT, but I just like decided to tackle it now because I feel like we definitely need to understand it. We need to understand how climate change is impacting us. Like on the 11, like most people don't know that there's like an 11-year solar cycle, solar flare cycle, and that we're currently in a recess, and how that's also contributing to climate change, and how that's also contributing to a larger global shift. And just talking about those different systems. And I feel like that is a big technical support, and I feel that we definitely need that more in our movement, and I'm definitely pushing for that actively every time I'm like interacting with other youth.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Climate Reporter, your online reporting venue?
Okay. Yes, the Climate Reporter is a basically I started as a blog in 10th grade, and it happened after I watched Leonardo DiCaprio's Before the Flood. Right after I watched that video, I decided to write a blog talking about how great his movie was and how great it was to have documentaries like this and how we should have more of them. And once I felt that, I saw that a lot of people were commenting and saying, "Oh, thank you for writing this." Just got a lot of feedback from it. I started writing more and more articles and started writing more and more about climate change. And I felt that, hey, it shouldn't just be a blog. I look at the technology industry and I see that we have TechCrunch, which basically is the center of technology journalism and basically the center of that. And say we have different industries have one central news outlet that informs people about that industry. And I feel like the environmental movement is missing that. And I felt, hey, what if this blog could be more than a blog and an actual news organization? And could help unify our movement to not focus on 50 different things in 1 year and solidify us and make sure that if we have a central news organization that says 2019 is the year of making sure that plastic bottles are reduced in our oceans and that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is reduced by X%. I feel like if we have that unifying article and that unifying voice, then that will help to push us forward faster. So that's why I started recruiting more people when I went to youth events. And when I went to events in general, I said, hey, I'm trying to create a news organization and I wanted to unify our entire movement. Are you willing to join? And people all over the world reached out through social media, through email, through all different mediums, and said, hey, I heard about the Climate Reporter. I want to join. I want to see how I can help contribute to this. And it kept growing and kept growing. And now we have writers in Hong Kong. We have 2 in Dubai. We just recently had an additional 1 in Australia. We have people all over the United States, especially in Iceland and Alaska and northern provinces of Canada, and just having people all around the world to create a network of primarily high school students. Over 90% of the writers of the Climate Reporter are 10th and 11th grade. And we're all writing about climate change. We're writing personal stories about how it's impacting our lives, which is a different narrative that normally is in mainstream media. We normally fly out a person for 2 or 3 weeks to report and gather information about a topic. But I feel like if you get the actual person who is the authentic experience of that person captured in a story that they have the power and the agency to tell, then that is transforming their ability to basically have the power to tell their own narrative. And it gives them that power to make sure they're characterized properly and effectively and not manipulated. And that is why like the Climate Reporter started and is continuing. Our goal is by the end of 2020 to be recognized unilaterally as the uniting force of the environmental movement. And that's what we're working towards, and we're rapidly growing, and we're always gathering new people. We're always looking to grow and make sure that we are not just a news organization for the sake of being a news organization, but actually being credible in our writing style and actually being credible in how we're viewed in the news industry.
Wow, that's amazing that you've been able to do that. We have a couple more questions. This one's from Minx. Is there a letter writing campaign or petition we support specific to the March 15th strike that might be impactful? And is there a specific platform or way to do this that focuses on elders? I don't know if you have any information about any letter writing campaign or petition on the March 15th strike.
Yes, we are currently in the process of setting that up now. Right now, we're currently just like making sure that all of the current locations are making sure that they are logistically okay with like marching and making sure that we get like the different permits and things like that. And after that, we are definitely looking to have petitions and making sure that more people are involved and set up online petitions as well. Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. So keep us in the loop on that, and we will certainly get that out to our constituents, to the rest of the elders, and support you. I have a question. This is a little long from Tim. I'm flattered that you think we elders are sources of wisdom and good advice, but bear in mind that we and our parents and our grandparents are the folks who got us into this climate mess in the first place. I believe youth can bring to this issue an urgency and focus that we elders and other adults would have difficulty mustering. Youth needs to take possession of the goal of controlling climate change. Also bear in mind that many fossil fuel executives knew about the growth of climate change long before it became so profound a part of our current perspective a part of our current perspective. Youth needs to take control and discern the lack of wisdom and ethics that has emerged from some of the most powerful people of my age. Do you agree or disagree? That's the question.
Uh-oh, we seem to have lost Jerome for a moment. Let's hope that, there.
Okay, it just glitched out. Yes, yes, I understand your question. You're saying that you don't want youth to be, you don't want us to be divisive in that how we are approaching the way that we are basically trying to make change. And I think that definitely it is true that we didn't cause the problem, that we're born into this, and we're trying to fix it, and that we're fighting for this because we need to make sure that we have a livable future, and that we see that like the deadlines for tipping points for catastrophic events are slowly the estimate said 30 years. Like 6 months ago it said 30 years, and then now wildly today it's saying that it's now 12 years. And I feel like that is definitely something that we're seeing, that is that we are noticing that we have very little time. So I think that it is definitely important that we value your opinion, but also in that we have to make sure that we are urgent and not like complicit in saying that hey, we're going to meet with these people, but we aren't going to push them to adopt our views. But I feel like at this point we definitely have to ramp up our this is where like the youth come in and say, hey, we can't just come in and just listen symbolically, we have to make action now. And I feel like the compromise between listening and taking sizably little action and not listening at all, and like trying to make sure we get every single bullet point in right now, the middle point to that is basically listening to people that have been here and have experienced how climate change has been happening and has been gradually happening over the years, and youth that are seeing basically reports that are saying you're gonna die in 5 years, and it's just scaring us, and that we're now radicalized to make sure that we have to make action now. I feel like there's a middle ground that we're trying to reach now, where we're having like the sunrise movements, no fossil fuel money plays, where we don't go to our politicians and say, hey, can you stop accepting money now, and also only use no corporate PAC money now, and also make sure that you do 10 other things that relate to climate change. We go and meet with them on one issue at a time. Just say for the Citizens Climate Lobby, Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, that was one issue they went and talked with them, and basically got that through, and that it got them introduced because they went there and were strategic in how they asked for things, and they said they had one issue at a time. And now I feel like Sunrise Movement is now going and saying, hey, we don't want you to now, the next step to introducing carbon taxing is to now not accept money from fossil fuels. And then the next thing after that is to make sure that they are actively disinvesting and discouraging discouraging fossil fuels and incentivizing clean energy. But I feel like the biggest thing that we understand now is that we're young people, and that we are we're talking about how we can connect with older generations, and I feel like our politicians are not our age, and that they're definitely around the same age as this audience, as you guys I'm speaking to now. And I feel like that is key to have you guys to be able to make sure that we are basically able to connect with them in the same way, because we have grown up in different times. Like how I view certain terms, we may have like different Snapchat. Like most people of if you're older than the age of 16, most people don't know what Snapchat is. Like my older sister, who's 26 right now, doesn't know what Snapchat is. And just being able to relate, we can't go to a politician and say, can you use this hashtag on Snapchat? And they're not gonna understand us. So just definitely getting you all's advice to be able to relate with them, and to be able to make sure that once we leave, we are actually making substantive impact, and making sure they understand, and saying that they will actually make efforts to introduce bills and pass them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That is I'm just amazed, and I have so much respect for your insight into the issue and the understanding that you have of both climate change being so urgent and some political realities. So in the chat box, Noelle and Bob have placed a resource, which is a new movement based on oneness in all our relations. And there's a website there that if people want to look at, that's there for you to share. And we have another question. If you know about Sunrise's plans for debates and their tour across the country.
I'm not part of Sunrise Movement. I'm just like, I work with them with like the different campaigns, but I'm not actively strategizing with them. So.
Great, thank you. Let me see. A question, is the Climate Reporter open to contributions from elders?
Yes, definitely, yes.
Okay.
We're looking for contributions from all people. Definitely. If you email me, if you email the email that if you email so many emails. If you email me and just tell me how what article you'd like to write about, and just send me a picture that you like to accompany with like the article, definitely I would. We have a system where we have basically we'll just proofread it, and then we'll send it back to you, and we'll post it on our website and see if and check the timeline and see how we can best publish it on. For the next couple of weeks, we have for next week we already have our article set up, but the week following that we're open to suggestions.
Wonderful.
I'll make sure I include the link or your email information and things with the recording link that will go out to all the participants.
Okay. Definitely.
Fantastic.
Great.
Fantastic. So we've been throwing a lot of questions at you, and we're wondering, and I'm wondering, if you have questions for us that would make it give you some useful information, or ways that you would ask us to help.
So one question I have is, are there any organizations what are the list of organizations that you see, that you value, that could help, that maybe the youth don't know that much about, that could help us in making sure that we are making the most impact?
There are a lot of organizations out there. One of the organizations that we are closely allied with is the U.S. Climate Action Network. And that is an organization, a network that consists of over 170 climate and environmental justice organizations. Some of them are large organizations and some of them are very small. Some of them are national and some are local. So that is an area where we can share information, we can get resources, we can collaborate. And from our perspective, as a small organization, we believe that adding the elder voice in collaborating with other organizations is the way to amplify the issue and amplify the voice of elders out in the community. So U.S. Climate Action Network, and let me think, that's the big organization that I would say. Jen, did you have any suggestions, or Francis?
I think the Environmental Voter Project, which is a big partnership of ours, which is really working to mobilize the non-voting people who are self-identified as environmentalists. So people who are not consistent voters or not voting, getting them to vote. And we worked with them last year, and we'll be working with them again. Another big project starting up here pretty shortly. And then Climate Reality. And I think I heard rumor, Jerome, that you're going to be attending Climate Reality training in Georgia. Is that correct?
Yes, I will be attending. I definitely want to attend last year, but I had to make sure that my grades are also up and make sure that school is number one priority. So now I'm up to date and I'm current in all my classes. So I'm definitely taking off for the weekend to get certified in climate activism. So
That's wonderful. You'll have a wonderful experience. There's a number of Elders Climate Action members out there, and a few of us here on that you can see that are all climate reality trained, and so that we think that that's a really important partnership between Elders Climate Action, but also a great partnership for youth organizations, because it's a great place to get trained in how to go out and talk to people in your communities. And similar to Citizens Climate Lobby, which is another great organization that we're closely partnered with, that again teaches people how to go out and lobby. So really great training opportunities that we definitely utilize as part of ECA.
yes, so I do have, yeah, definitely feel free, like definitely connect me with like the climate voting initiative, and that is like definitely like something I'm interested in interacting with for the 2020 galvanizing the youth to make sure that they're participants and making sure that we're active. And I have one more question, well probably like two more, but I want to the climate reporter is looking to basically have a training. We're looking to basically teach youth about how to be good activists and to be effective. And we're looking to see if any of you all or any members of Elders Climate Action will be interested in teaching those classes and mentoring us to make sure that we are effective. Yes. And
great. Would people who are interested contact you directly then through your email? We'll provide your email in our bulletin that goes out tomorrow, and then they can contact you directly through that
yes,
email.
Definitely. And we're definitely looking for scientists. We're looking for, like, I definitely push for the technical aspects. So I always look for people that are just adding to the scientific community, and people that are looking to like the STEM fields in any way. Like definitely scientists. Like we're looking for them to mentor us.
Great, great. And it really is important to, it's important to be passionate about the issue, but it's also important to be able to, as an individual, for people, for your youth, to be able to understand what climate change is. And I actually have a comment from one of our members who's saying the stories of elders of the way that climate was 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago is very important for the younger generation to be able to recognize the dramatic changes we've seen in our lifetime. And I can tell you that I have seen dramatic changes, and I live in South Florida, and I live in close to Miami, and when I first moved here, which is just a little over 30 years ago, there was no flooding. And sunny days. There was flooding if it rained for days and days and days, but there was no flooding. And that's in a matter of 30 years. It's not even 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So it's really very, very dramatic. And I think, things have happened so quickly that it's hard sometimes for people to realize the difference. And what has happened, the way it was 40 or 50 years ago is even more dramatic. So perhaps the stories of elders may help youth really understand the rapid rate at which this problem has exacerbated.
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely, that is one of the big pushes that we're especially with the climate reporter. We have been to Miami 2 times so far. We have been there to report on sunny day flooding, right where the mayor and Leonardo DiCaprio had the original interview. We went there and filmed it in virtual reality to get a 360-degree video of like how they're rising and how they implemented, how their infrastructure is just, frankly, is not adequate. It's not working for the people that are living there. And just reporting on that and just making sure that their elected officials are acting for the people and making sure that they are livable, because there's so much real estate there. There's so many people there. There's so many just lives. There's so many different people that will basically be dead from all this rising sea level. And they'll be displaced and they'll have to move, and that'll be extremely devastating to their economy, extremely devastating to their lives. And just looking at that, that's why the Climate Report has been there so many times, and we are looking to come back and looking to continually report and get stories from Dade County, from these different counties that are currently going through. Miami is literally one of the top cities that their ratio of the amount of lives that will be lost, the amount of infrastructure that will be destroyed, is in the top 10 of cities that will be underwater in the next 10 years. London is one of those, not London, many Indian cities and Chinese cities, and Miami is literally the only Western Hemisphere city that will be devastated by that. And Miami is the soonest to have that happen. And we're looking to be right at the forefront of that to get you all's impact and to get you all stories of how that's impacting all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I see it on a regular basis in Miami, living here. Somebody is asking if you know of a website where we might find the names of active environmental youth groups in a particular area. Do you know of any site that may have that? I know that Sunrise does have a webpage that can get you down into a particular geographic area, but I'm not sure if you may know of others. And if you don't, and if you come across one, just send it on to email it to Jen and we'll get it out.
Yeah, I don't know of any right now. I can definitely research and check and see and come back and make sure and just give a response to that. Definitely. I don't know any currently right now, but I'd definitely research that.
Okay, great. In the chat room is the Twitter handle for the executive director of U.S. Climate Action Network. If you want to look in there, you can get her Twitter handle, and she is actually located in the DC area.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And we, several of us have participated. I participate as a voting member on US CAN and have gone to their conferences, as well as others in ECA. Some suggestions of organizations are Pachamama, if you haven't heard of them.
How do you spell it?
Pachamama. Pachamama.
I can cut and paste the chat box to you, Jerome, so that you don't have to worry about writing them all down tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah.
Any more questions regarding intergenerational work? Anything really on how the youth can help to make sure that. Oh, one question I do have. With all of our work that we're doing now, what is one thing that you say that we should fix that you don't see is that the best thing that we're doing, something that we can do better or change as organizations or individuals?
And you are you speaking specific to the youth? What the youth
Yes.
can fix, or what we collectively can fix?
The youth can fix.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that. I think to keep learning and keep having your eyes open and listen intently, so that one of the things that I can tell you is in the 60s and the 70s, when we were activists, there was no one who could say to us, well, wait a minute, maybe there's better ways to get to that place, or or perhaps have a little more insight into the political structure. So I think that it's a matter of being open-minded and learn, and it's difficult given, and it's difficult for us, I can tell you as elders, because we are looking for our grandchildren, and we also know that, you know, as much as the climate has limited life, so do we. So, you know, we have the same urgency in many ways, but yet have to stop ourselves and say, is this the best path? And really just be intentional about what we do. And sometimes say we can't do that because we don't have the capacity, because the problem is so overwhelming that we need to focus on separate things and individual items. So, and I think that we have a comment, this is the last comment, that one of the things that youth can do is appeal to your parents and grandparents to get involved and take action, to, you know, send them the message to get involved, which is also very, very important. So Jerome, this has been phenomenal. I hope you'd be willing to come back at a later date and talk with us again. We'll be happy to give you whatever information we can and whatever resources we have. Certainly we've got some very, very strong science-related people who've had careers for 30, 40 years in climate change, science, and engineering. So there's some skill sets there that might be able to help you. So I want to thank you very much.
We're actively looking for scientists. Sorry.
All right, we can certainly help you with that. And they'd be willing to meet with you, talk with you individually or as in a group. They'd be very happy to do so. And before we close, I just want to announce to you all, particularly youth, that the lawsuit that Jerome referred to earlier was first started in 2015, where 21 young people sued the government to demand action on climate change, and it was a case called Juliana versus the United States. And this has been going through the courts and is now at a point where there's a young people's brief to support the Juliana plaintiffs. And they are looking, and we are supporting and looking for youth to sign on to this legal brief. Anybody can sign on, but the only ones that will be included in the brief are those under the age of, I think, 25. And the deadline for this is March 1st. So I would like to urge you, Jerome, to put the word out to youth and to all of our participants to put the word, to talk with your grandchildren, your grandnieces and grandnephews, and any other youth that you have in contact with, to support the Juliana brief. It's important, and it really is about the civil rights of all people, including their fundamental rights to life and liberty, which are being affected by climate change. It is winding its way through the courts, and so anybody who can, please sign on, and as many young people as possible before March 1st, and call your grandchildren tonight and get them to sign on, or send them a text or an email. And I have another announcement. Elders Action Network is the organization that ECA is a part of, and they are having a workshop called Choices for Sustainable Living. It's going to be every other Monday, starting on March 11th and going through July 1st. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific time. You can go to, there's a fee for the course, and it is an in-depth course on making some sustainable choices. And to participate in this, you would go to eldersactionnetwork.org and sign on to
eldersaction.net.
Oh, .net. I'm so sorry. eldersaction.net. I apologize. So if anybody's interested, it's a phenomenal workshop, a lot of interaction and a lot of enjoyable company as well as information. So hopefully people will sign on to that. I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Jerome. This has been phenomenal. We have truly enjoyed it. It's great to see your perspective and understand your perspective. And I hope you'll come back and participate with us on other issues. And if we have questions and would like to bounce some ideas off you, I hope you'd be willing to listen to us. And please keep us in mind and tell us how best we can support you moving forward, because that's what we want to do. So good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight, and you will all receive the recording of this national call. And thank you so much, Jerome. Enjoy Climate Reality and enjoy your time at Harvard.
Thank you all for having me here. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Jerome.